Welcome to Alasquatch, the show all about Bigfoot in the great state of Alaska. I'm your host, Beans Baxter. So lace up your boots, zip up your coat, and come with me on an adventure as we explore all things cryptid in the last frontier. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in and listening to this week's episode of Alasquatch. I was dark last week. I didn't put out an episode. I was actually on another podcast. I was on the Manimal Research podcast, which you can find on YouTube. That's Manimal Research, Manimal Research. A couple of good old boys from Tennessee, I believe is where they're from. I think it's a fairly new podcast. And they've got some pretty interesting episodes. I've went through their catalog and listened to a couple of them. I actually went into it kind of blind. I'd never listened to any of their stuff. And usually before I go on a podcast, I try and get kind of a feel for the show before I go on. But this one I kind of went into blind. I had a really good time. Talked about Port Chatham and some of the history and lore of that place. And you can find my interview with them on their YouTube page. Go over there and show them some social media love. Give them a like and subscribe. Listen to my episode. Give it a thumbs up. And speaking of YouTube, one of the reasons why I've kind of been a little absent from podcast land recently is because I've been working on a YouTube series for the Alasquatch YouTube channel. And basically what's going on is I am going to release every Friday for the next few weeks. I'm going to release a episode, not very long, usually between 10 to 20 minutes of stuff that happened during my trip to Washington. I spent 10 days there after the Medellin Falls Bigfoot Festival, camping and exploring and going out with other squatchers and doing some by myself. And I've been compiling all that footage and putting it together and getting it ready for release. And so head on over to the Alasquatch YouTube channel and give me a like and subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get notified when a new episode drops. And give them a view. The first couple, actually I think the first three, literally document my first day. Like the first day after the festival and after my first night camping, and I got literally 3 episodes out of just the first day. The third episode about Gypsy Meadows is when it really starts to get interesting, and then the next couple episodes after that are really, I think they're going to be pretty special, so be sure and keep an eye out for them. And those are dropping every Friday on my YouTube channel. And what else have we got to talk about? Oh, I wanted to mention that I'm on TikTok as well as Alasquatch Podcast. I'm still kind of trying to find my footing over there. I haven't really decided what I'm going to do with it. I've posted a few trail camera videos. I've posted a couple videos of my dogs. I'm just kind of wondering what I can do with it. So just if you're on TikTok, give me a subscribe over there and check out some of my stuff. And also, if you're interested in my dogs, many of you know, I have a couple of French bulldogs. They have their own TikTok that my wife pretty much handles. It's called Alaska Frenchies, and we've got some pretty cool videos on there. There's not very many because we only do it when we feel like we've got something really kind of special. So give them a subscribe as well, and you'll see some pretty funny Frenchie action over there. There's one in particular that we just put up a few days ago, where it was actually a video that I took, and I sent it to my wife, and I said, you know what, I think the Jaws theme would work perfect with this, and she put it together and put it up, and I think it's hilarious, and I cannot fathom why it hasn't gone viral, why it doesn't have more views. It is amazing. But I'm a little biased though. So anyway, what else do I want to talk about today? I have got so much stuff planned, and it's just looming over me. I'm almost a little overwhelmed. I thought that when I retired from law enforcement, I just thought, man, I'm just going to be like relaxing and just, do what I want. But I've just got so much stuff that I want to do that it's just, I think about it all the time. I'm just like, oh man, I need to do this and I want to do this. And then on this day, we're going to do that. And I'm not as stressed as I was when I was working. Certainly not by any means, because I mean, I could just walk away from this at any time and I'm not really going to be out any money. But this is, it's a lot more stressful than I thought it would be, doing the podcast and content and having to plan stuff and get content banked and stuff like that. But it's a lot of fun. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm not complaining per se. I'm just saying that it's a little bit more stressful than I thought it would be. In fact, I was thinking about going camping today, and I looked at the forecast and there was some like rains forecast. So I was like, maybe not today. Maybe, next week, because we're having a big rainstorm come through here. It's going to rain basically all this week. And now I'm sitting here in my studio looking out my window, and I can see like it's all nice and sunny and there's not a cloud in the sky. And I'm like, I should have went camping. But here we are. And, I need to get something on the mic. I need to spit some into the mic and get a podcast out there. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about something that I don't normally talk about. And this isn't the main topic for the show. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. I just kind of want to touch on it because it's been such a big deal, I guess, in the community recently. And that is the recent Patterson-Gimlin film debacle. And for those of you that don't have your thumb on the pulse of the community, like some of us do, and I use that term loosely. Recently, it all started when Richter Riolo, who's I don't want to say Bigfoot personality. He has a YouTube channel where he does a bunch of videos about Bigfoot. He doesn't do Bigfoot content. He's not a Bigfooter. He basically talks about Bigfooters, which is kind of fascinating in its own respect. But he basically does videos about people that look for Bigfoot. He doesn't do necessarily Bigfoot content. And I've watched some of his videos, and there's a lot of things that I actually do agree with him on. A lot of things I do not agree with him on. But recently, in the past, him and Russell Accord were pretty close, pretty good friends. And from what I understand, they were teaming together, trying to get a show, pitching a show, a Bigfoot theme show. And anyway, there was a falling out between them. I guess Russell got cast in Expedition Bigfoot. Richter did not. And there's some bad blood in that whole situation, but that's not what this is about. Richter posted on Reddit that Russell had confided in him and Steve Coles. Steve Coles is a Squatch detective. He's a gentleman. I believe I'm not sure if he's ever been in law enforcement, but he's a private detective that does a lot. He has a YouTube series, I believe, called like Squatch DTV. He does a lot of debunking of hoaxes and stuff like that. I actually like a lot of his work. But Richter posted on Reddit that Russell had confided in him, Richter, and Steve Coles that the PG film was fake, and he had a confession from Bob, and that he was going to release it after Bob passed away. Or I'm sorry, Bob and his wife passed away. And that kind of, it just took off like a Roman candle, just started going everywhere. Steve Coles posted a video about it where he basically said, Russell did say something like that. And I think, from what I gather, and I'm certainly no expert on this, I didn't cover every piece of media that was put out on it, but I did try and follow it pretty close. And I did get Richter's side of it from, I believe it was Squatch Talk podcast, something like that. But I did gather that Russell did say something along the lines of, the film is not what people think it is, and he has some interviews with Bob that he's going to release after Bob's death. And that's basically what he said. I don't think he ever said that the film was a hoax. I think he just said, basically, the film is not what people think it is. And Richter and Steve kind of took it as that means it's a hoax. And the only thing that really gets me about that, because I'm like, oh, okay, it was just a misunderstanding, or, some wordplay that was misconstrued. But Richter did say that Russell had said something about he's looking for the suit. And that bothers me a little bit. But at the same time, I don't know that I've ever really gone into my thoughts on the PG film and all that. I think, there's the allegations from Bob Hieronymus that he wore the suit in the Patty film. Well, I think Bob Hieronymus did wear a Bigfoot suit, and I think Roger did film him, but I don't think it was Patty. I think it was for another project, or maybe the same project but at a different time. I don't think, I think that Bob Hieronymus is telling the truth. I just think he's telling the truth about a different incident, if that makes any sense. I think that he was filmed probably by Roger wearing a Bigfoot suit, and I think it was for a different project or a different time. If you go and listen to there's like a 6-part series on the PG film on the Astonishing Legend podcast, and they really do a deep dive into it. And they talk about Roger showing some footage to some people that is not the Patty film of a guy in a suit. And I think that is probably the Bob Hieronymus footage. And I don't think that the Patty footage is Bob Hieronymus. That being said, when Russell told Richter that he was looking for the suit, I wonder if that's the suit that he's talking about. The Bob Hieronymus did wear a suit, but it was not the Patty suit. But in my opinion, if either of the suits, let's say Patty was a suit, which I don't think it is. If Patty was a suit, and then there's another suit that Bob Hieronymus wore, if either one of those suits are still around, I doubt they've been taken very well care of. They haven't been sealed in a hermetically sealed chamber with those little oxygen or moisture absorbing packets. So they're probably they probably wouldn't look. You probably wouldn't be able to pull one out and be like, oh yeah, that's Patty. So I don't know. Anyway, so Russell has come forward and made a statement basically saying like, no, I was misunderstood. That's not what I said. Bob has denied that any such confession exists. So for the moment, I am just going to have to go with what Bob says, that that doesn't exist, and that it was a bit misunderstanding. That being said, I don't know what to think about that. It was just kind of a thing that took off, and of course, if there's anything the Bigfoot community likes to do is to disparage and put others down. So it definitely gave people the opportunity to do that. So we'll see. I mean, I guess the only thing that we can do is just wait until whatever footage Russell's talking about gets released, and I guarantee you he's not going to release it until he can profit from it somehow. He's not going to just put it out there out of the kindness of his heart to clear this up. It's going to remain wherever it is until it becomes profitable for him to release it. So I think I just going to have to wait and see. I have always kind of, I've put a lot of stock in the PG film. It was one of the first things, when I first started looking into Bigfoot and kind of really seriously considering the subject, it was one of the things, some of the analysis that I have heard about it from people like Tom Cantrell and Jeff Meldrum and a bunch of those people really kind of pushed me over the edge to where I was like, holy crap, this stuff is real. So the PG film was kind of my push over the edge, I guess, as you would say. But since that push, I've since had my own experiences and just things that have happened to me that push me even further. So I'm going to have to rely on my own experiences and go with that. I mean, I think it's definitely a kind of a bump in the road for the legacy of the PG film, and time will tell, I guess. But for now, we just have to go with what with what your gut feeling says. If it says it's a hoax, well, I'm sure there are other people out there that feel that way as well. If you think it's real, I'm sure there's a lot of us out there that believe it's real. So it's kind of unfortunate that that had to unfold the way it did. And I want to say that I don't think Richter's a liar at all. I think Richter is honest. But that being said, his perception of things is not necessarily the best, in my opinion. I think that he often tends to view and form opinions on a skewed platform. So I think that and plus, his whole thing is basically making fun of people and debunking people. And I watch a few of his videos, and I try and stay away from the drama in the Bigfoot world, because I think there's enough of it out there. If your thing is like you want to gossip and do drama, like, don't get me wrong, I like to gossip, but in private. And I think that there's enough out there that if that's the part of the Bigfoot community that you're interested in, you can certainly, there's certainly enough stuff out there for you to consume. So I try and stay away from it. I don't normally talk about stuff like that, but I just felt like, because I'm such a fan of the PG film, I just felt like I needed to address it. But yeah, it was a big dust up. It's kind of died down. I don't think there's really anything going on about it right now. Hasn't been any new developments since I think Russ made that statement. I'm not going to mess with reading any of that or letting basically verbatim what was said. There's enough documentation on it out there now that I think you could probably look it up with no problem. Yeah. So anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to happier pastures. I have wanting to talk today about the new book that Dr. Robert Alley put out. It's called Brushes with Bigfoot: Sasquatch Behaviors Reported in Close Encounters, Native and Non-Native Perspectives. And I picked this up from Dr. Alley at the Medellin Falls Bigfoot Festival, and actually read it out in the field while I was out looking for Bigfoot, which is something that I don't normally get to say about my Bigfoot books. I normally don't consume Bigfoot stuff out in the field. I don't read Bigfoot books. I don't listen to Bigfoot podcasts. And I made an exception for this one, and I read the book. I think it's a pretty lean book. I think that would be my first impression of the book. It's only about, let me see, it's only about 145 pages or so, which sounds pretty hypocritical because my book is only about 145 pages or so. But that being said, I felt it was it was priced a little high, for that number of pages. I think, my book is around the same number of pages. My book's about $15. Dr. Alley was charging $20 for his. So, I mean, his book, obviously, I know he's put a lot of work and time into it. And if that's what he feels like it's worth, absolutely. I mean, I paid it. So, I wanted the book so bad that I felt it was worth that price. But I personally, for a book that size, I would charge a little less. But that's an opinion, and plus I don't know what his publishing situation is or who published it. It says it's published by Muskeg Media. I assume that's maybe a vanity press. I don't know. Amazon publishes my book for me, and I think it's quite a good deal. It's quite affordable. And I'm also able, because I supply my own ISBN number, I'm also able to basically make my own publishing imprint. So if you've read my book, you've seen the Sasquatch publishing emblem on the cover, or on the inside cover. So anyway, that's probably my first impression of the book, as it's a little on the lean side. The cover, which has garnered quite a bit of attention. I've posted the book in a Bigfoot literature group on Facebook that I'm a member of, or maybe somebody else posted. I don't remember, but people were kind of freaking out over the cover, because there is a picture of a Bigfoot on the cover, and it is actually, that is Murphy from the North American Bigfoot Center in Boring, Oregon, the museum that Cliff runs. So it's a picture of Murphy, I believe, superimposed over the background of a forest. That is not a picture of a real Bigfoot, as I kind of think maybe somebody suspected initially when they saw it. So getting into the book consists of 25 stories and encounters from all over the northwest, primarily in Alaska, southeast Alaska. There are a few, or a couple, I think, from Washington, I believe, and maybe even Oregon, but primarily the encounters and stories told in the book take place in Alaska. There's some pretty good ones in here. I don't want to get too deep into it, because obviously I don't want to spoil anything, but there are some really interesting encounters in here, and they kind of run, they run the gamut of... There's some spooky ones, some scary ones. There's some that are almost humorous, and then there's just some that kind of, they saw the Bigfoot, walking, a couple hundred yards away, and that was the end of it. But I think there's 3 out of the 25 that really kind of stood out for me, and I'll just ever so briefly, describe them here. I don't want to get, like I said, I don't want to just spoil the entire book for everybody. I want people to actually go out and buy it and support Dr. Alley. But the first one that really kind of comes to mind in this book, one of my favorite encounters, are a couple of hunters that they screw up the prop on their boat, which I can totally see happening because I've been in similar situations, and they get stuck on a little island. And I'm not going to go too far into the details of this, so I'm not going to name names and places. But they get stuck on this little island. They decide, we'll just hang out here for the night, and then tomorrow we'll try and get someplace where we can get some help. So they're kind of hanging around on the shoreline. They've collected some firewood. They've got a little fire going, and they're sitting around kind of lamenting their fate there, that they're trapped on that little island and not hunting. And they're kind of, one of the guys that is giving the other guy a hard time about screwing up the prop on the boat. He had backed into some rocks and had caused some damage to the prop. And he's kind of giving his friend a little hard time, a little ribbing, as you probably would in a situation like that. You would be like, I can't believe you did that. Like, what the hell? And so he's giving his buddy a hard time, and they hear kind of off in the outside of the firelight, they hear somebody mimic what one of them just said, and they get pretty creeped out, and they start shining lights around, and they see this eye shine, like several pairs of eye shine, and it gets a little closer, and basically, I don't want to spoil everything, but the behavior that is described in the encounter is that of mimicry, where the Bigfoot, basically is mimicking what the guy says, and they never actually get a really good look at the Bigfoot, but they do see several pairs of eye shine, and they circle the camp for quite a while, and it freaks the hunters out pretty bad. And that's probably one of the creepiest encounters in the book, and one that really stuck out for me. And yeah, I just that's a scary thought to be sitting around the fire with your buddy, and something in the woods starts mimicking your voices. So that was I believe that might have been the first or second story in the book. And keep in mind, while I'm reading this, I'm sitting in the woods in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, and then probably the next one that comes to mind that really I found kind of humorous was there's a young lady. She's working in a store in the bush, Alaska, and the store is kind of situated at the edge of town near, I believe it was either a lake or a swamp. And it's summertime, and she's closing up the store for the night. And or maybe it was fall. I believe it was dark. It was dark outside, I believe, from the story. And she's mopping the floor. And I don't know how many of you have ever worked retail or done this kind of work before, but I could just it totally made sense what she was doing. So she's got the doors open. She's mopping the floor, closing the store up for the night, doing the floor. That's one of the last things you do before you close up generally. And she's got her kids with her because, there's not any childcare available probably. So she's got her toddler children with her there, and she's keeping them basically as she is mopping the floor. She keeps them one aisle over where she hasn't mopped yet. So they don't mess up the mop floor. So one night she's out there mopping the floor. She's got hit my mic. She's got the door open and to let the air in to dry the floor, and her kids are on the next aisle over playing, and they're just making general kid noises and laughing and playing. And then all of a sudden she said they got really loud, really excited, they were doing something really fun, and she was wondering what in the world are they doing, because she thought maybe they were getting into something that they weren't supposed to be in. Maybe pulling stuff off the shelves or something, I imagine. So she goes around the corner to see what they're doing. And she says as she turns the corner, she sees this little hairy, look like a little hairy kid run out of the store. And so apparently she surmises that the baby Bigfoot had heard her kids playing and had come into the store to play with her children. And that's a very fascinating account if you take into account the fascination with children that people say Bigfoot has, and that if they hear kids playing, it might draw them in. And I just felt that was an amazing account if it's true, and it's pretty fascinating. And the last well, it's not the last story in the book. It's certainly not last or least. Like I said, there's 25 encounters stories in the book. And I just picked out 3 of them, basically, that were kind of my favorites to talk about here. But the last one that I'm going to talk about takes place on Prince of Wales Island, which, if you guys remember, we were supposed to, myself and Extreme Expeditions were supposed to go on an expedition there last year. And because of the whole COVID thing, it just never, it didn't come to fruition. So I'm hoping here in the next year or two, hopefully I'll be able to get out there and do something. I'm not sure what, but something. But this story, it actually takes place in a campground where there's been several other sightings. And it was a campground that we actually were going to stay at when we went to Prince of Wales Island. I actually had the sites at the campground reserved. And it because of the COVID stuff, we weren't able to go. So anyway, the encounter consists of, and this is a very fascinating one, is a lady is out camping with her husband, and I'm not sure if they're in a tent or an RV, but they're in their bunks or their sleeping bags or whatever, and they're sleeping. And the lady wakes up, and it's kind of raining outside. It's Southeast Alaska, and she decides, it's like 2:00 in the morning, something like that. And she's like, I'm going to get up and go stoke the fire a little bit, because if it goes out, with this rain, I'm never going to get started again. So she gets up and she exits the RV or tent or whatever they're in, and she walks up to the fire pit or fire ring, and she's getting ready to put some more wood on the fire and stoke it up. And she sees, kind of standing behind their vehicle, she sees some hairy legs, and she looks up, and sure enough, there's a Bigfoot standing there, just a few feet from her. And this is a pretty hardcore Alaska lady. She's lived in Alaska all her life. I don't believe she was native, but I might be mistaken on that respect. But I don't believe she was native. But she's lived here all her life. She's pretty hardcore Alaskan. She's a hunter. She's a fisher, fishing. She knows her stuff. And of course, she's heard all the stories from the native peoples about the hairy man or the Bigfoot. So she knows what she's looking at. And instead of getting scared, she starts talking to it. And I just thought that was fascinating. I was like, man, what a tough lady, And she's kind of just like, oh, hey, nice to see you. I'm glad you're here. Just trying to interact with it. And, it's standing. She can see the head of this thing over the top of her car. They have a big car, too. It's like a Suburban or something, I think. And she's talking to it, and she says, like, well, I've got to get my fire going, or, I'm not going to be able to get it started tomorrow, or something to that effect. I'm not quoting verbatim here. I'm just recalling it the best I can from my memory. So as she's talking to this thing, when she says the word fire, the Bigfoot like lifts its hand up and doesn't point, not with a finger, but basically lifts its hand up in the direction of the fire pit. Like it knew what she was talking about. Like it recognized the word fire. And she bends over or moves away to grab a piece of wood, and she looks back up and it's gone. But I just thought that was really fascinating. But if you think about it, if they have that propensity to just kind of hang around and watch people like a lot of people think they do, they're probably bound to pick up a couple of words, especially like in a campsite where, what are some of the most common things you say around the campsite? Get the fire going, the fire. So I'm sure they would probably, if they were so inclined and had the intelligence, I'm sure they would pick up a word here or there. They probably know what tent means. They probably know what fire means. They might even know what sleeping bag means. So that was a very interesting story out of the Brushes with Bigfoot by J. Robert Alley. One of my favorites in the book. But there's certainly a number of others in here. There's 25 stories. Every story has a drawing that goes along with it. And every story is also plotted on the map where you can see where it occurred. So it's a pretty awesome book. It's a great addition to any Bigfoot library, especially if you enjoyed Raincoat Sasquatch, which I highly recommend you pick up. And I believe Raincoat Sasquatch is actually getting a little difficult to come by. Last time I looked at it on Amazon, it was going for like $30 or $40. And if you don't already have a copy, you might want to snag one of those up. And that being said, normally this is the part of the podcast where I would tell you where you could get Brushes with Bigfoot and how to buy it. But I do not have that information, I regret to say. However, I do have Dr. Alley's email address that I will put out here in a second. And you can reach out to Dr. Alley and see if he can send you a copy. I don't know if his plan is to only sell this at conferences, or if he wants to set up a website and sell it, or if it's ever going to be on Amazon or any of the major media or book retailers. I just don't know. I also wanted to mention that on the inside cover of the book, it says that the unrevised version was printed in 2019 as Bigfoot in Southeast Alaska, Close Encounters, Encounter Behaviors, for distribution at the Mile High Mystery Conference 2019. So if you have that book, I think that basically means you have this book. I think there's just been some revisions made to it, maybe a couple of stories added. But I wanted to point out that if you have that book, The Bigfoot in Southeast Alaska, you might want to hang on to it because it sounds like that might be pretty rare and it's not going to be in print again. So I would say that might be something for a book collector to hang on to. So anyway, I'm going to give you guys Dr. Alley's email address. Please don't harass him or bug him, but if you would like to reach out and try and get a copy of this book, you can certainly email him at roballey18@gmail.com. And I'm going to spell that. If you're ready, ROBALLEY, the number 1 and the number 8 @gmail.com. And again, the name of the book is Brushes with Bigfoot, Sasquatch Behaviors Reported in Close Encounters, Native and Non-Native Perspectives. It was published this year, 2021. And I recommend you pick it up. I think it's right up there with Raincoat Sasquatch. Like I said, it's a little on the lean side, but man, there's some good stories in there. Really good breakdown of the behaviors reported from the witnesses and some of the common behaviors that Bigfoot are seen displaying by witnesses. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of the book. I hope you enjoyed my review of it. I think it's worth your time. I also, speaking on books, I forgot I brushed over this on my show notes when I was talking earlier. If you guys have read Abandon, The History and Horror of Port Chatham, my book, I would very much appreciate it if you would head over to Amazon and leave it a review. I would like a good review, but honest review anyway. And the reason I'm asking for reviews, basically this late in the game, is I wasn't really too worried about it, but something happened that kind of ticked me off. And as you can tell, I get ticked off a lot. But somebody had left a 1-star review for the book, and it was because they had received the book and some pages had fallen out of the book, like when they got it. I don't know if it was a packaging issue where the book got mangled in the shipping, or if it was just, it was just a book that wasn't put together well. Maybe it didn't have enough glue in the binding. I don't know, but the book fell apart. And for whatever reason, the person felt it was the right thing to do to give the book a 1-star review. Personally, if that had occurred to me, the first thing I would do is try and get another book. I don't know why they felt it was necessary to give the book a bad review, because it showed up in poor condition. Now don't get me wrong. I think that's probably, certainly that aspect of it should go into your review. But I just, it's that's literally beyond my control. Unless you buy it from the website, from alasquatchpodcast.com, I have no control over the shipping. It's printed and it's shipped, it's printed on demand. If you buy one from me, then I will be the one that puts it in the envelope and sends it out. And if there's an issue with it, I will certainly try and make it right. But this was through Amazon. It was completely beyond my control. And instead of trying to get a new book, which I'm certain that Amazon would, anytime I've ever had an issue, they've usually worked pretty hard to correct it. So I would appreciate it if you guys would go on Amazon, and if you've read the book, leave me a review and try and counteract the the effect of the 1-star review, because it literally brought my book down to 4 stars instead of 5 stars. I was pretty happy because I thought, man, I've got a good selling book, I've got a good reviews, and then one person gets a mangled copy, and it shot it down a star. So it kind of aggravated me, and I actually emailed Amazon about it. I was like, hey, can you, if this person hasn't, and it's an anonymous review, so I can't track the person down and try and make it. I would send them one of my own copies if I knew who it was. And I reached out to Amazon. I emailed them. I was like, hey, can you guys like do something to make this person happier, so maybe they can update the review. And that was like 2 weeks ago, and I haven't got a reply back from Amazon. So I've kind of been hearing a lot of that from content creators, and I've been hearing a lot of dissension about Amazon recently. A lot of negative things from creators, not from customers. Like I said, generally as a customer, Amazon has been over backwards to make me happy. But I've been hearing some rumblings in the ranks from people that write books and make movies. And I have to say, certainly I'm a little disappointed. They could at least reply to my email and say, no, nothing we can do. Sorry. But anyway, guys, I'd appreciate it if you'd run over there and give us a review. Check me out on YouTube. Don't forget, we've got the Sasquatch in Washington series that's dropping every Friday. There's already an episode out, and there's another one dropping this Friday. And then next Friday, which will be, let me pull up my calendar here. That will be August 13th. I think when part 3 drops, you're going to want to check out part 3. It's going to be pretty cool. All right. I got some really cool stuff coming up on the podcast. We're going to have Jesse Desmond on soon to talk about the Boreal Bigfoot Expo. We might have Stephen Major on to talk about some upcoming stuff in Alaska. We've got a lot of stuff planned. I've got some really cool stuff planned as far as Bigfoot movies and reviews and stuff like that are planned. It's gonna be awesome. So just keep listening, and hopefully you'll hear something you're gonna like eventually. So find us on Facebook, on the Sasquatch Facebook page. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok. And you can find us at our own website, alasquatchpodcast.com. You can listen to the podcast. You can order some cool gear. Oh, I forgot to mention, we've got some cool stuff coming in. We've got some new designs and some new stickers and magnets and stuff coming in. And that stuff is going to be really cool. And some little knickknacks that you can pick up fairly cheap. And promote the show for me. It's some really cool stuff. I think you'll really enjoy it. That stuff will be dropping here in the next week or two on the website. And I think that's about it, people. I think I'm done for the day. And check out the video on Friday that's going to drop. And I appreciate your support. I appreciate everybody that listens. And if you want to contact me, you can drop me an email at alasquatch@gmail.com. And there's also a contact form on the website you can fill out and get in touch with me. Hope everybody is enjoying your summer. I'm enjoying mine so far. And looking forward to getting out in the woods some more. All right, people. Be safe out there.